Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast, and this one is a little special because we are actually recording episode number 200, so it's a big milestone for us. And I'm here with Roel today. Hey Roel, how are you?
Good morning. Yeah, episode number 200. That's incredible.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's really nice. It actually went pretty fast, though. It feels like, we recorded episode 100 last week.
I know, right?
Just thinking about that. Yeah.
I guess since we record every week, which is already hard to do. I mean, there's some weeks that we miss, but I think this year we did really good on recording almost every week. There hasn't been too many weeks that we missed due to, either traveling or we're sick, or it's been pretty consistent for us.
Yeah, and last year I think was pretty good as well. So I guess in 2 years you can make 100 episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're just consistent that way.
And this episode is a Christmas week episode. So Merry Christmas to you guys, wherever you're at, and happy holidays. Hope you guys are having a good one, and hopefully you're not so bored during Christmas Day that you have to listen to us on episode 200.
Bring in the family and listen to us.
Gather around the fireplace, everyone. Let's listen to Clear to Send.
we won't be singing any Christmas songs. Sorry.
Although you can gather everyone over, because at the end of this episode, we do have a giveaway, a pretty big giveaway that we'll announce. And so even if you head over to the show notes, cleartosend.net/200, we will have a form there for you to enter in this giveaway. So we'll let it run for a few weeks because of the holidays. Some people may not know about this giveaway until after this year, right? Because maybe some people just take a break from listening to podcasts, and I know I will, but this giveaway will be pretty good. So you want to stick to the end here.
Yeah, it's pretty good if you're learning about Wi-Fi. It's actually a really good one if you're learning about Wi-Fi. So you want to be listening to this podcast, listen to the audio, and then at the end, we'll just explain what it is and then how you guys can opt in.
Awesome. So we wanted to share some statistics, at least if you're interested, about how many episodes or total downloads that we've been able to have. Obviously, we're at number 200, and we've actually already recorded number 201, which will be published a week after this one. Actually, and it's going to be before the new year. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the last one of the decade.
Yeah, you make it sound like we've been recording for a decade, but it's been maybe almost 5 years.
It'll be 5 years. You started in 2015, right?
Yeah, in August 2015. So we are 200 episodes in, 201 episodes in, and we're coming up on our 5th year. So we've been recording for a while.
Yeah, and it's always a lot of fun.
It sure is. And how many total downloads do we have, Francois?
So we have total downloads of 360,000.
Nice.
Which is pretty good. It's a mind-blowing number for me.
It is, especially when all we do is talk about Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And per month, I think we're averaging between a little bit over 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, depending on the month.
Yeah, some months do better than others. Around this time in December, it starts to dip. But yeah, we've gotten as high as 13,000 on some months.
Yeah, and more than the downloads, we also see a lot of support from people, contacting us. We actually have, Slack group for the Clear to Send community. If you want to participate in that Slack group, you can go on the Clear to Send website, and you'll see at the top in the menu bar, you'll see a link on how to join us on the Slack channel. And on the Slack channel, we'll see we get a lot of positive feedback from you listeners, and from listeners of that lives all over the world. We actually have the stats of the number of countries where we got some downloads in, and we've had download in 175 countries.
Yeah, we are truly an international podcast. I don't know if we should start speaking in a different language for some of these episodes. But
well, we already have English, and English is the first language, and English is the second language. So.
Yeah, UK is like right up there, second country of downloads, and then Canada is up there too. So top 3: United States, UK, and Canada.
And I used to never look at the countries, and one day I was looking at the list, and the first one on the list was Andorra, and Andorra is like a tiny country between France and Spain. And I was like, "What? We get downloads?" And then I texted you. I was like, "Now we're truly international.
Yeah, we're reaching small areas."
Andorra.
So someone's really trying to improve Wi-Fi there. So. Hopefully it's a good listener there that
Oh, I'm thinking maybe they were just downloading while they were passing through the country.
Just driving by and like, I'm going to get a CTS episode in here.
Yeah, because over there they have like tax advantages. So like I know people from France that will go over there to buy their cigarettes or, put gas in their car. Yeah.
And it's not that far of a drive to go out there?
No, it's not. I mean, it's right. It's between France and Spain. So it depends where you live. But if you live in the mountains over there, it's not far.
Gotcha. Okay. That's interesting. So we've got 175 different countries that were downloaded in. And we do want to talk about some of the top episodes of 2019 and the top episodes of all time, because the list is somewhat different. But for 2019, it seems like 802.11ax was the topic of this year, because 4 out of the 5 episodes were 11ax.
Yeah, so we actually recorded a Wi-Fi 6 or AX series of episodes at the beginning of the year. And like you said, 4 of the top 5 are part of this series. If you want to go back and listen to these episodes, you can go to cleartosend.net/AX or /Wi-Fi 6. You pick you pick the one
language,
you want. Yeah. And you can go back and listen to them. And the 5th one is the episode number 178, 7 Wi-Fi best practices and guidelines. So you guys like this one as well?
Yeah, I was actually surprised by that one.
It's number 7.
It's number 7.
That makes all the difference. Right?
the
lucky
number yeah.
7.
It's a lucky number 7 best practice. Like, oh, they got 7 of them. I'm going to download this one and listen to it. And it's not all of our best tips. We just kept it to 7.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all we could fit in that episode.
But going back to the top 10, top 5 episodes, that's a question I get a lot when people discover the podcast, because they don't want necessarily start listening from the start. Yeah, they're like, oh my gosh, I have 200 episodes to catch back, and they ask me, where should I start? So I have a list of, depending on who I'm talking to, I have a list of episodes that are good if you want to learn about different Wi-Fi topics, if you're just starting, or if you want to go deeper in some specific topics like MIMO and stuff like that. So I have a list of technical episodes, or they just ask me, can you send me the top 10? And I just send them the top 10, and then they can start from there. And then I also reference the archive page we have on our website, because if you go to the website and you click on the archive, you can actually search by keywords. So if you want to learn about OFDM, you search OFDM for handshake, whatever, and then you will be able to find the relevant episodes to the keyword you're searching for. So that's also a good way to start listening to the podcast and start learning from it.
Yeah, and if you don't find anything in that search, we do have another menu item there that says "Ask a Question," where you could, if you want a topic that to be on the show, you could list out a topic there or some topics. We do get some requests for different episodes, and we keep that in our hopper so we have an idea of what people want to listen to. So that's how we also figure out what topics to record.
It's a CTS request, right? Hashtag CTS request.
Yeah, you can also do that on Twitter. I think people fill out the form more than they do on Twitter, which is good because then we actually know who's submitting it. They put their email address, and we can elaborate on some of their questions. And
also, you can actually ask the question with your voice, which is cool because we could integrate that into the podcast if you do.
Yeah. I wish a lot more people would do that. That would make the episode more interesting. You kind of hear the person behind the question. You don't have to say your name, but you could use your computer, your browser to. There's a little widget on the Ask a Question page there where you just click on the button and it'll use your microphone, and then you could record your question there, and we get that as an MP3 file, which we could play back through an episode and then talk about your question.
With your fancy mixer, we can do that.
Yeah, we can do that with the fancy mixer. so the number one episode of all time so far, which I thought was really surprising as well, was episode number 134, Understanding the Four-Way Handshake.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising to me. It's a really important part of Wi-Fi. And it's been there for a long time, right? In Wi-Fi communications. And it's
a good CWNA topic as well. I think maybe that's why it's up there. There's people that are probably looking for this specific process in Google searches and when they're studying, and this one comes up.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say it's part of the basic knowledge of what a Wi-Fi engineer would need. So it's really good, and it also shows us that a lot of people listen to the podcast to learn things.
Yeah,
right. Just not hear from us. Hear us talk, ramble.
They actually want to learn some topics. So I mean that's something we'll talk about later on after this, because we're going to talk about 2020 and what's coming. But let's continue on with some of the top 10 episodes of all time. We're not going to list all top 10. We're not going to talk about all 10, but we'll put a list on the show notes if you're interested at cleartosend.net/200. But the second one is episode number 102 on capturing wireless frames, which is also important if you're going to be studying for the CWAP.
Yeah, and it's something that's not really straightforward if you come from the networking world or even from the IT world in general, because you don't capture wireless frame the way you capture Ethernet frames, for instance.
Yeah. Right? You don't just turn on Wireshark and then use your built-in adapter to just capture. You'll learn the hard way when you start looking at frames going, why don't I see the rest of the frames? Why am I only seeing my data?
Why do I see IP stuff? I want to see 802.11 stuff. Yeah.
So we talk about that, and there's some follow-up episodes to this one where we go into OS specific. So we talk about Windows and capturing on Windows, and then also capturing on the Mac.
Yeah, and if you go down the list, looking at the other big topic, one of the biggest one is MIMO. So we'll talk, I think, about this one
and
again.
And that's a tough subject to talk about too.
Yeah, it's not easy, especially on the podcast. But we actually interviewed Eric Johnson from Aruba, and he did a great job explaining MIMO. And people really like this one. They really like this podcast. I got a lot of positive feedback on it. Another interview we did with Devin Aiken. I think it was CTS 84. We talked about channel bonding, and I get a lot of positive feedback on that one as well. Yeah,
that one I think is one of my favorite episodes, and that was an interview with Devin on. We also talked about OBSS and the effects of that as well. So Devin did a great job of educating us on what it means when you have when you're bonding channels, but then you have that channel overlap, especially when it's a secondary of one channel on a primary of another, and what happens. And I encourage you guys to go back to that episode and listen to it, because Devin is an incredible instructor. So if you ever get a chance to learn from Devin, he would be a good one to learn from.
Yeah, and he's very passionate about, what he does, and then you can actually hear it in his voice and explanations. Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. And going down the list, what I've noticed as well, going down the list of the top 10 is, we don't have any episode. Like the oldest episode is 102.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't have any of our earlier, I guess, episodes in that top 10.
Yeah, which probably means, I don't know if people just aren't going that far back, or those episodes aren't good enough. Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's probably a little bit of both, right? Obviously, we're getting better with recording episode 200. And maybe people don't go back, listen to the first 100.
I mean, those episodes aren't.
I mean, some of them are pretty good.
Those are my early episodes, where a lot of those I did by myself. And then a couple of them were interviews as well, where I think the first person that we ever interviewed, that I interviewed, was Eddie Ferrero on Badfi.
Yeah, Eddie was the first interview. I remember listening to those early episodes when I was painting my daughter's room right before she was born. When you do your daddy's duty.
Man, it's been that long. Oh,
it's been that long. Yeah.
and I remember you were on. You were an interview on the show, and then eventually you became a co-host.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm happy you brought me along. It's been fun. Yeah.
And some of the other episode top 10 all time, we got Meraki Wi-Fi tips. I wanted to do that episode because in the Bay Area, there's a lot of Meraki installations, but people aren't doing it properly. They're doing making poor Wi-Fi design decisions, and they're using 80 megahertz wide channels in a very dense environment where there's several other networks in the area, so they would complain about slowness. So I decided to do a Meraki Wi-Fi tips episode and talk about how you could, which settings you should look at when it comes to working with Meraki Wi-Fi.
Are you saying they just install Wi-Fi 6 and
some of them do
expect
expect the greatest Wi-Fi?
Greatest.
I've had a run into two environments where they said, "Oh, we installed Wi-Fi 6 because it's the latest and greatest." So that does happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you live in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, they seem to fall for anything.
Yeah.
Any new technology, it must be good, right?
And then if we look at the rest of the top 10s, we get a lot of Wi-Fi 6 episodes as well, right? 4 of them, 4 of them. So I guess it's a hot topic.
Yeah, it's coming up. I think a lot of people are really looking into Wi-Fi 6 now, especially at this stage, right? Hopefully in a year we'll have the ratification. So it makes sense that people are looking for Wi-Fi 6, trying to understand more, which means we'll probably have more episodes on Wi-Fi 6 on very specific sections of Wi-Fi 6 and how it works.
And so we'll put the top 10 in the show notes if you wanna have the, if you want to know which episode. We'll put links so you can go back and listen to them as well. Other stuff we've learned recording 200 episodes. Obviously, we learn a lot of things, right? Preparing the episodes, and also we learn from interviews. Whenever we interview people, we tend to learn from the people we interview, and then try to transfer that to you guys. A couple of interviews that were key for us. So we talked about the one with Devin. That was a really, really good one where we learned a lot.
Yeah, that's the OBSS episode. And for that episode, I know that I've re-listened to that episode a couple of times because for me to have that information really stick, you'd have to listen to it multiple times, and that's one of our older episodes. That's episode number 84. So if you go to cleartosend.net/84, you can hear that one out. And we did have a lot of good feedback on that episode.
And this one was so good, I still remember where I was when we recorded this one. So
that's how memorable it was for you. Huh?
Yeah, I'm emotionally attached to it, I guess. You also interviewed Bob Friday. I was never there when you did it, but you interviewed Bob Friday, and it was really good for you.
Yeah, he was talking about 20 years of Wi-Fi, looking back, and where he was during that time, and he's been at different companies, and now he's at Mist. And so he started talking also about the next 20 years. What is Wi-Fi going to look like moving forward, and what does it mean with 5G? What does that mean for him? And also talking about Bluetooth low energy. So that was an interesting discussion, especially because Bob Friday has like a wealth of knowledge in the industry as someone who's created businesses and that have been acquired by other companies, I think twice now. I don't know his full history, but he, as far as I remember, it's two companies, one acquired by Cisco and the other acquired by Juniper. So he's got a lot of experience in the Wi-Fi industry, and he's done a lot of different inventions for the Wi-Fi industry. So that was a insightful discussion with Bob Friday. And then
I think you could feel it in the interview as well.
Yeah, he's very cool to talk to, right? And he's the co-founder of Mist, so I felt like I had a executive on the interview, but it didn't feel like that, right? He was very easy to talk to and very cool, and it was an easy discussion, I'll say.
Yeah, you can feel he's a real engineer at heart.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he really likes to tinker and create things, so that's great. And then you had your episode. I wasn't on that one. I missed that one as well with Eric Johnson.
Yeah, that was really good. We talked about MIMO. And so Eric Johnson, he works for Aruba, and he's in charge of developing all the outdoor product. But he's really good with radios and antennas and stuff. And he was able to explain MIMO in a different way that you could actually understand it pretty easily. And you could actually get good tips from his interview. I tried to ask the question that we usually have related to MIMO. Does it work outdoors? And, how does the orientation of the antenna impacts MIMO and so on? So, the streams, what it means, what's a stream, technically speaking. So he did a great job explaining all of this, and he's a super smart guy. So you can also feel that as well.
Yeah, awesome. That's another great technical episode from the other interviews that we've done. We've also had Scott Lester and Chris Reed talk about Stadium Wi-Fi, which was I think popular this year and last year because of the major league teams upgrading their Wi-Fi networks. So that was things got interesting there as they all try to upgrade for like the Super Bowl, for example, right? And that kind of density and capacity. And how do you design for that, which is not an easy process, especially with all the moving parts of a project like that. But we got some insight from people who have been out there in the field designing it and installing it, and also the different configuration that they have to do for stadiums.
Yeah, and these ones are really good. We talked about, how to design for Wi-Fi, and we also did a specific episode on the implementation side of it, and what differs from a typical Wi-Fi installations. And so, Chris and Scott shared their experience and the tips they use to handle not only the design but also the deployment of such a specific network, large network. all the gotchas you need to think about and stuff like that. So if you're thinking of designing or if you have to design for stadium Wi-Fi, or if you want to upgrade a current stadium Wi-Fi, make sure you listen to these episodes. We will list them. It's 154, 123, 127, and I'm sure you get some good tips from these guys.
Yeah, especially if you might be designing for a stadium as well. And then we had the opportunity to speak with Jerome Henry on open roaming from Cisco. And that was an interesting discussion, seeing how open roaming, it's fairly new. So we talked about how it works and how it's going to get out there. Because I see it as a competitor to Eduroam for some reason. It seems like Eduroam, right, Francois?
Yeah, and then Passpoint as well. Passpoint as well. Yeah, and it's currently driven by Cisco, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. But it seems like vendors in general seems to want to embrace the seamless roaming between cellular and Wi-Fi, or even in general, seamless connection to Wi-Fi.
Right. And they're trying to build an ecosystem is what it looks like, where you have different partners or different companies that you'd work with in order to make this work. And it worked at one of the Cisco Lives. I think it was at Cisco Live this year in San Diego. And then, it was on, I think, Mobile World Congress, I think. I might be wrong.
Yeah, they talked about that. Yeah, I mean, it's great if you have all the parties involved and everything works correctly. I think the challenge will be to have everyone involved.
Yeah, have everyone join it. And also, they didn't talk about licensing, so we don't know how that works.
Yeah, and then right now they're carrying all the cost of developing the product of the service. But what will happen if they try to standardize it? Who will be in charge to maintain everything? So it's to have some questions open there. But at least I guess it's starting to lead the way, and we'll see if other people will embrace it.
Yeah, we'll see how that adoption rate goes over 2020. And then going along with Cisco, we also had Fred Niehaus, who's always great to have on the show. I think he's been on the show twice, but he talked. We were at Cisco Live at the podcast booth. We spoke with Fred Niehaus on Wi-Fi 6 and the new Wi-Fi 6 APs that Cisco was coming out with, and he's just he's fun to listen to. Right? He can really generate a discussion and tell a story.
Yeah, and plus he was like at Cisco Live, right? So we were live in the event, so it was a cool setup for us. Yeah.
What else did we learn? Oh, I just want to mention like the one person who's been on the show the most is UC Kivanimi, right? We recorded with him the other day with Wes, which is the next episode coming up. But after that gets published, he'll be on 6 episodes.
Yeah, he's all over the website. If you search UC on the archive.
Yeah, he's there. You'll see all the posts. He's there. He was one of the very early interviews that I did. It was episode number 9. And that was an interesting one because I had planned to record him at the hotel he was staying at. And he decided, hey, why don't we just go for a walk and record? And we still had our beers prior to recording. And I was like, you see, I don't think we're not allowed to walk with alcohol in the open. And he's like, who cares? And then so we walked all the way to Levi Stadium and we walked back, and people were running on this path. UC almost got hit by a bike. So that was interesting.
You can actually see the picture. Yeah, if you go to cleartosend.net/009, you can see the picture of UC and Roel.
Yeah, we stopped someone from running and said, hey, take our picture before you pass us. And then
it's 9. Yeah.
Yeah. So UC is always fun to record with. And a lot of times those are just unplanned. So we just talk. Yeah. We truly just talk. We have no discussion or no agenda, and we just talk about a topic, and it works out. UC is very good at that.
And if you would like to come on the show and talk about a subject you have at heart, share some ideas with us, just don't hesitate to reach out to us on Twitter at Clear2Send or on the website, ask a question. You can just reach out to us like that.
Yeah, come join us on the show. Other episodes that we've learned from, you had a very good experience with Conference Wi-Fi, which was episode number 172. you've learned a lot from there, right?
Yeah, that was a good experience for me. Learned a lot. I really enjoyed it. And it wasn't the first, conference Wi-Fi I was supporting. But I tried to gather, some of the things I've learned along the event, more like event in the event word in general, what I've learned from that. And then I also really enjoyed doing it. So I was just trying to share that with everyone.
Awesome. And I've had an episode 171 right before yours on high density in higher education. So as I've been in higher ed for a couple of years now, I learned some things on designing for higher ed, but then there's also a bunch of logistics that happen prior to getting an AP mounted anywhere, especially when you have an environment that's BYOD. You don't know what kind of devices are being brought in. Sometimes you don't know what applications are being used. You know what application that the professor wants to be used. But if you've ever sat in a class, which I have, I can see a whole bunch of other applications that are not even related to what's being taught being used.
What? Are you saying people are watching Netflix in class?
Yeah. Netflix, NFL,
video game,
football. Yeah. So try to accommodate for those guys.
It's like we've never been student before.
Yeah. Yeah. I always pay attention in class. And then of course we've learned from doing the 11AX series. So cleartosend.net/AX. I still remember it from earlier this year because I think we started the last year because we were reading the draft, and that's when we were like, hey, how are we going to talk about this that makes any sort of sense, right? Trying to interpret the draft and give it to people in English. And I think we're a lot better at it now. We understand it better, but we're just waiting for more implementations to get the real world to get how it looks like in the real world versus what we saw in theory.
We also got a lot of help, from the vendors because they came out with their white papers kind of like at the same time. So we could also leverage that and to help us understand the draft. Because what's frustrating for me in the draft is that they tell you how to do things, but they don't necessarily tell you the why behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
So sometimes you just wonder, like, why do they want to do it that way?
Yeah, and then we do have to thank some of the vendors for providing us with Wi-Fi 6 APs to test. We've got Cisco, Ingenious, Mist, Aerohive, and Aruba. We've gotten some tests from Aruba, but I also purchased an Aruba AP, Wi-Fi 6 AP to test things out. So a lot of that we were able to validate to some degree using these APs.
Yeah, it was a very interesting journey.
Yep. And then we've got a bunch of events that we attended that we're fortunate enough to attend. We've been to Mobility Field Day 2, 3, and 4. We went to Jessa Tech at Cisco. We've been to Cisco Live, WLPC. I don't know if there's any other events. Wi-Fi Trek.
Yeah. I've never been to Wi-Fi Trek. But no, not yet. Maybe one day I'll go.
Yeah, next year it's going to be in Vegas. That's a easier one to go to, but for me. And then some of the other things the one thing that we did that was new was we hosted our first webinar this year, which turned out pretty good. We had a few attendees, but we did talk about Wi-Fi, and it was engaging, right? We had some questions, and I thought that was fun to do. So maybe we'll do some more of that next year.
Yeah, and you can actually watch it again if you want to.
We actually have it on our YouTube channel, so you could actually see us.
Yeah, exactly. In my office.
In your office, yeah. Right. So I flew to London, Ontario, just to record that webinar.
Exactly. Just for that.
But that was fun. Yeah. So honestly, I was just there for a wedding, and I said I'll spend a day at Francois' house.
And the idea behind the webinar is we asked listeners to give us some question on Wi-Fi design, and so we picked up I think 10 questions, something like that, and we tried to answer them one after the other. and we had like a couple of slides to support that as well. But I think it went pretty well.
Yeah,
we had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I liked it. And that dovetails into what we have planned for 2020. And I think we should definitely do some more webinars with our listeners. And it just depends on what topics you guys want to hear. And we can develop some content that way that's visual so you could see it. Then we'll put a link out to the webinar on our show notes page so you can kind of see what that looked like, but we'll make it better this time.
And then because sometimes the audio is just, a little dry, just the audio. So next year we'll try to also develop some, additional documents we can link in the show notes so you guys can reference these as well. You can take home.
Yeah. So we plan to do some more webinars on specific topics. We'll come up with some ourselves, but we'll also look to you, the listeners, to see if there's a topic that everyone kind of seems to be wanting to know more about. And we could do a webinar on those. And then we also plan on doing some sort of online training for you guys. So if there's maybe if you're studying for a certification, maybe some of the CWNP certifications, we're thinking about developing some sort of training to put out there for you guys and try to provide a little bit more value than from a traditional training environment. And we'll try to make it a little bit more engaging since it'll mostly be virtual. Actually, it'll be all virtual. And we just want to provide more value and engagement through that. In addition to just doing these audio podcasts. So there'll be more structure to it. Sometimes I feel like we are doing training through the podcast, but you don't get to see anything, right? It's mostly audio.
And then also, as we saw with the top episodes, most of them are, technical overviews. So, it shows us that most of you guys want to learn a little bit more about Wi-Fi. If you want to learn about something, it's in particular, something specific, just don't hesitate to let us know, and we could try to incorporate that into the online training. We do have a couple of ideas we've been thinking about and working on.
Yeah,
lately,
it'll be more than just like an hour episode. It'll be visual and self-paced, so you'll be able to at least take it whenever you need to, or if you're on the go. We'll also include audio for separate audio if you just want to listen to it, but at least you'll also have the visual, and then you could just do it on your own time. And then we still have our interviews planned for next year, in addition to the weekly episodes that we do without interviews. So we'll talk about real world 9800 deployments with Cisco. We'll talk about some 5G use cases, enterprise 5G. We're going to still talk about some technical topics. So we previously did 802.11r most recently, and we're going to continue with 802.11k and V. Then we'll talk about some security frame exchanges, because we didn't go into detail on that on 11R because that episode would have gone really long. And then we may have a use case on location-based services. So this year we did a lot of theory talk, right? Or there were some use cases as well, but we may have more use cases for you guys next year.
And then hopefully we could also have interviews with, people from the Wi-Fi Alliance and people from the Wireless Broadband Alliance. We've been talking to them, and we just have to schedule everything so we can actually, talk to them and see, how they see things, and then we can ask our questions as well.
All right. So Francois, what's something that you're most proud of for doing this episode? I didn't even look into how many episodes when you started, so I don't know how many episodes you've actually done, but what are you most proud of with doing the podcast?
I'm actually, I'm really happy with the feedback we get from the community. All right, I guess the little community we've created with the podcast. We have a couple of core people following us, and I get a lot of positive energy from them, and that keep us on being able to post every week. Being consistent is really hard, and I'm actually proud of that as well, because it's not easy every day, but it's really helped us to to keep the podcast where it is.
Yeah, I would agree. Having a community built around this, I would have never even thought that starting this podcast, we would build a community. We do have a really good following of people, especially in the Slack group, because we communicate with each other every day, especially on even non-Wi-Fi topics. So we've become more like friends with a lot of you guys. And then publishing consistently is a challenge, and it forces us to learn something every week. And we've got this recording process down that we could record a day before we publish, because we're 3 days before publishing this episode, but be able to record it seamlessly without a lot of editing. And then we just put up our show notes. And I think that's at least that part we've got down. Like I was in the beginning, I was really concerned about any editing that I had to do. And then at some point I was like, I don't want to edit. I just want to record and then publish it.
Yeah. So we found some ways, and I mean, you're also very easy to work with. So makes it easy. Very easy.
Yeah. We work pretty well together, especially remotely, since we don't see each other often, right? We see each other maybe once a year, maybe more than once this year. So it may sound like we're in the same room, but we're not. And a lot of times we're recording in hotel rooms or somewhere remote that's not at home, right? And that's our dedication to the podcast and to the listeners, to provide valuable information, and we try to get it as right as possible, as correct as possible, but we're not perfect. So if there's anything incorrect, we do take feedback and correct it. There's been some times where we've had to go back and correct things in a previous episode, but hey, that's all part of the learning process sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And if we talk every week, so we might say, wrong stuff sometimes.
What? We might be wrong.
Yeah, but we appreciate you for sure, and it's really helping us to keep on working on the podcast, improving it. And we're actually going to be working in the next couple of weeks. We'll be working together as well to try to see how we could, how we can plan the next year, the upcoming year, and improve the podcast.
Yeah, we're looking for ways to make it better than this year, right? So for me, it's always like being better than yesterday. So how can we make this even more valuable for you guys? And we're open to suggestions. If there's something that you guys want to see from us, let us know. We're open to hearing what you guys have in mind and where you want to see this go. It's not always us just controlling where things go and what we discuss. We have listeners who are you. So if there's something you want to listen to, something you want to see, then let us know. All right. So should we do the giveaway now?
Yeah, sure. Let's do the giveaway.
All right. So this giveaway is going to be pretty good because we got a Rockstar wireless networking giveaway from Wi-Fi Training. They were gracious enough to give us a license to give away a CWNA lab workbook and also 20 hours of lab access. So if you guys have been seeing this giveaway that they've been doing for the holidays, and then they said that was their last one, well, this is the last one. They were able to give us a license, and we're going to give it away to one lucky person. And you just got to go to the show notes page, cleartosend.net/200, fill out the form there, and then we will pick a person to receive this giveaway. So if you're planning on getting your CWNA next year, you can get a head start with this Rockstar wireless networking package here, the lab book and the lab access, which will be fantastic.
Yeah, I just want to add two things related to that. First one, if you look at the people behind the lab guide, it's Chris Evans from Wi-Fi Training, and I think Rasika also worked on it. It's really good work, and I've seen the lab guide. Chris was giving me a preview, and it's really, really nice. It's a very detailed step-by-step lab guide, so you can actually get your hands on stuff. They built an online platform you can log into and then actually do some lab. So it's adding the practice to the CWNA theoretical study. So it's really nice to complement what you're learning from CWNA, from the book. And also if you're more in a hands-on type of guy, and if you like it reminded me of some of the Cisco training where you have a lot of small labs. You can also, use those exercise and labs to learn about Wi-Fi. It's really good. It's really valuable, I think.
Awesome. Well, there it is. We'll give a link to on Wi-Fi Training's website, wifitraining.com, so you can actually learn more about the lab workbook. Since if you may not be familiar with the lab workbook, those workbooks are new to Wi-Fi Training. So I think you'll find it to be very valuable with your studies. But anything else you want to add, Francois, before we end the show?
No, I just want to say that the value of this workbook is $700. So it's a good giveaway. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys will want to sign up for this. I think you guys will be happy. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening on this episode number 200. It's a great achievement for us as we show our dedication to the podcast and to the listeners and to the community that's out there. And we just want to provide more for 2020.
Yeah. And I just wanted to thank you, Roel, for all the work you do for the podcast.
Oh, and thank you for all the work that you do. We back each other up whenever one of us isn't available to do an episode. It just works out.
Yeah, I know this year haven't been easy for me personally. So
yeah, you've been traveling quite a bit, and then I was traveling for my travel increased this year, but somehow we managed to still work together, get episodes out. Even though you may not have been on an episode, you've helped me on an episode that I was going to be on by myself. And then we've been able to keep it consistent. So thank you.
No problem.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Head to cleartosend.net/200 for the giveaway.
Yeah, register for the giveaway.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.